Hey guys! We just want to take a quick sec to acknowledge that it's through the support of our patrons and sponsors that makes it possible for us to continue creating these videos for you each week. And for that, we want to thank Ritual for sponsoring today's episode. Since house sitting, we've been able to develop a new set of habits to help us stay strong, healthy, and sane these days. And adding in Ritual's obsessively researched multivitamin is one of them. They're vegan-friendly, sourcing their omega-3s from microalgae. They're also sugar-free, non-GMO, gluten-free, and allergen-free. What we find most unique about them is that each bottle comes with a scented tab to keep your vitamins smelling fresh. And the bottles they use are made with 100% recycled materials. While better health might not happen overnight, using their delivery subscription, it does come delivered straight to your door each month. And using our link and code below, Ritual is offering you all 10% off your first 3 months. Right down there, guys.
Just below.
Now we can let Drew finish up his breakfast.
Kind of big and cold with all this filming.
We're Brittany and Drew, and after living on the road since 2015, we've been in need of a big change, especially after 2020. Hence house sitting in the suburbs of Northern California, which has led us on some pretty delicious and unexpected adventures. And today's episode is no exception, because with questions about what to do after van life on our mind, we're willing to go just about anywhere to find the answer. But before we navigate those waters, let's take in a deep breath and let it out. And now, it's time to enjoy the show. What a day. Look at that sunshine. So beautiful. After being told about the old Sausalito houseboat community from somebody who used to live there and learning about its wild past, we couldn't wait to drive down by the bay to see this vibrant, gritty, and inspiring community for ourselves. The rebellious history of the 400 or so floating homes in the Sausalito houseboat community reflect a proud bohemian history that began well over a century ago. The Venetians of the West, as they dubbed themselves back in the day, now live in everything from architectural gems to repurposed working boats and a few maintenance-challenged vessels that date all the way back to World War II. But rather than having you hear it from us, we're going to let the residents themselves tell you the story, and ultimately what drew them to live here, and, well, what has put houseboats on the radar for us, too.
We just arrived. Let's go meet David.
Dave Johnson, Davy Jones Deli.
David Jones. Home to some of the most famously delicious sandwiches in Sausalito.
Sometimes David Robert Johnson. Depends if I'm playing music or catering or in the deli. We're in the Sausalito houseboats.
Okay.
This is called Waldo Point. We're at gate 6.
Okay.
There's 6.5 in Commodore. There's 5, 4, 3, and those are old military names. I think the first houseboats were wealthy people from the city that would float and just come here for the summer, and they would canoe around and fish, and the women would sew and cook. These are the first houseboats. These were summer homes, and they would bring them out into Richardson Bay in the summer and go fishing between. They had long tables, and they're just like little ranch styles, and they were floating. These are actually 100-year-old houseboats, and they've been arced, which means they're on pilings.
Okay.
So these are super historic.
Wow.
They're a little smaller than the floating homes,
Sure.
which can have 2 floors, but they're the most charming and historic for sure. The military came to build Liberty ships for World War II, and they would bring it in the rail here at Mount Tam, the railway, and they'd drop off the steel, and 2 miles down, they were doing 1 battleship a month.
Wow.
So before the hippies, the beatniks were here, and they found all the military leftovers, like this boat. This is a World War II life raft.
Wow.
And it was
Wow.
laying in the mud,
No
and
way.
they're like, oh, we can fix this, we can make it float. And then the hippies discovered it, and everybody came out, and it became this artistic community, really off the grid. you know, really alternative lifestyle kind of stuff.
Very cool. So everybody was very resourceful, like self-reliant.
At that time, there was no utilities. Nobody was hooked up to the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, you find chickens and goats. People lived by lamplight, public showers, and then over time, the landholders obviously developed it. So it's the classic story of gentrification. Want to be on YouTube, Nelson?
Yeah.
Describe the houseboats, bro. Nelson's
Oh,
born and
welcome. This is longtime son, historic arc.
Yes.
Originally a pile driver that built the Carquinez Bridge. Then it was, after that, it was worked for Morton Salt, hauling salt from the salt fields.
Wow.
My uncle bought it in 1959 from Don Arquez, who brought in ferry boats and barges and became kind of a slumlord down here, but
Wow.
real friendly to all the artists. And when the hippies showed up after the Summer of Love, he said, "Come on over. This whole area is basically hallowed hippie ground." Lot of animals, no people buried here, but plenty of pets.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they just came through and redid all the parking lots, and the community that used to be all over is lined up right there. My uncle died a few years ago, and when I took over, I'm going to do that hippie art colony.
PLR.
Gonna do that thing.
And so yeah, I named it after the song they sing at the end of Kundalini sets.
May the long time sun shine upon you.
So buried in here is the history of, you know, Otis Redding, Dock on the Bay. That's from here. There's hundreds of authors and artists. And I'm a musician and a chef. My wife's a musician, a singer, a visual artist. Everybody we know is creative. Prices are going up. Some more tech money is coming in.
Sure.
Yeah.
We do have friends who are doctors and scientists, and that's cool too.
That live in the community.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a fun mix.
Yeah, it's a really good mix of people.
See that houseboat right there? It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's for sale, $1,095,000. And we're gonna get to go inside.
It's a contractor who bought a fixer and completely redid it.
Cool.
Thank you for letting us peek.
You're welcome, and the bathrooms are pretty too. That's a beautiful bathroom.
So beautiful. Wow. You'd never know we were on a boat. Still finishing up a couple of things, but this is a big bedroom.
Wow.
What are these holes in the floor?
These go down to the bottom of the barge.
Wow. Oh yeah, look at where we are. That's so fascinating.
I think we can say we're officially below deck.
Great storage under the stairs. Wow. You can see underneath the whole house.
Come look at this for a closet. Look at that.
Whoa.
That is the biggest walk-in closet. That's probably half the size of Spirit.
You see that? There's a porthole. I have a feeling that all of our homes are gonna have to have a porthole.
This houseboat is about 1,000 square foot, so the standard size barge for these houseboats to be built on is 60 feet by 40 feet wide.
I love this kitchen. Yeah. But I think our favorite part, as usual, would have to be the porch. Oh, how nice would this be? That's so cool.
We're at low tide.
I noticed that rolling into like the bay from over here.
So in about 4 hours, we're gonna float up 6 feet.
Wow.
Up and down twice a day. This would be a bad time to plan a music concert because none of these people can come. We plan our music by the tides and the wind.
And you perform on the water?
Out in the bay. And so that dictates how we plan our water events.
Sure.
And you know, when we go Christmas caroling or,
Oh, what a blast.
or trick-or-treating by boat. We do a lot of community by boat, especially since COVID. It's been really good for the neighborhood. We know each other better now because everybody's here. We've been more resourceful with, you know, figuring out how to have social interaction safely.
Yeah.
We need those kinds of fun little things to look forward to.
Yeah.
We've all been pretty deprived of, so that's really cool.
Big time. We normally sit out on the docks after work and have cheese and wine, and since COVID, people don't want to walk through that, you know, people.
Yeah.
So we've slowed that down. But still, we're kind of at a nice distance from each other.
How did you end up out here? You're from Iowa?
I'm from Iowa. My last day in college, I saw an ad for semester at sea, semester.
Okay.
It said, yes, I want to steer a tall ship by a star. Put a seed in my head. I figured out how to go sail tall ships. So I sailed up and down the East Coast all my early 20s, teaching environmental science.
Wow, I love it.
In and out the Great Lakes, up and down the coast, Canada to the Caribbean. And after so many years, like van life or any other extreme traveling, comes a time you want to hang your shirt, so I went yachting to make money. I switched from educational tall ships to proper yachts.
Okay.
Way more money.
Sure.
And I didn't like it. Working for one wealthy family is not my thing. I want to make stone soup. I want to cook for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm crying in my beer in Aruba. I sign up for Facebook. Facebook says, how about your friend Christine? My high school best friend. We were in a rock band together. She's on Facebook. I get a hold of her. She says, yeah, I live on a houseboat in Sausalito. Can I have a boat? She says, there's one right now. You got to get it right now because it'll go so fast.
What year was this?
2009.
He no longer lives in the original houseboat that he bought back in 2009 for $60,000, but it was very similar to the unique shape and design of this guy. As you'll later hear from him, it was completely rotten, and so eventually he had to demolish it and built this in its place. He explained the importance of this design being modern, thermal, and up to code, with no windows on the front for privacy, which is actually smart. Instead, he placed the windows up high for lighting and on the corners to take in the view.
I had to finish my contracts. I wasn't able to even come here for about 9 months, but I'd never been here. I decided to play my whole hand on Sausalito. As a geographer, I saw lots of farms, lots of money, and my plan was to live on my boat and sell soup to my neighbors, which is what I did.
I love that.
That was fun. It worked. It got me catering, and then I eventually started the deli as a lark. I thought a year or two, but that was 10 years ago, and I've since bought and remodeled my home, and my wife got to quit her horrible corporate job, and I have a band, and I've got 2 sailing dinghies, and that's what I'm here for, is music and water, and unfortunately I have to cook for a living. But I don't have to drive. I have 2 kitchens. I could bike to both of them. Or sail. I sailed to work last week. The main transportation.
Love it.
A couple of e-bikes. My neighbor builds these out.
I love the front gardens for everyone.
Yeah, and tables and chairs, and you can hang out. We'll be early.
Wife's doing yoga.
Yeah.
Not going inside.
You can peek in there.
Okay.
So beautiful.
He told us they designed their home for the purpose of food and music. All the pots. Did you see the pot?
Yeah.
Hence the giant soup pot on the ceiling. That must be for stone soup. Even though we could only take a peek in, you could just tell that there was so much love and character built into every little aspect of your home.
I know when David and I first talked on the phone yesterday, like the first thing that came out of his mouth was like, no commute, beautiful weather, we get to look at the water every morning, and he just was stoked for this environment.
I mean, this is pretty convincing. And then we met Maria, an author and wild crafter who was also quite convincing.
Hi, Florentine.
Hi. She's so cute. She's a truffle duck. She's training to hunt truffles. Yeah. Yeah. She's really good
That's
at it
so
too.
cool.
I know.
You made this.
Yeah. I think I caught the fish too.
That's so cool.
This is tan salmon leather. It's an LED light. Wow. And I did this at Autodesk with the laser cutter. So these are like seaweed tiles.
Wow.
Yeah, these are oyster shell tiles. They're very simple, but kind of time consuming. But this is the original version of this boat. This is a 100-year-old fishing boat he was living on in the slip. This was his bathroom. Here's his little kitchen, right? I know. This, during very high tide, they put that into a cement hull, and then they built a back room onto it. Wow. So that's why it got torn out. All I know is when I got this boat, it was 100 years old. Wow. When I bought it. So my bedroom is the only original room, but I redid everything in here. But I put in the wainscoting and the flooring, and then I made that. That's
It's like a mermaid chandelier.
Yeah, well, so I'm a writer, and I was writing about, we have kind of a crisis on the coast, on the Sonoma and Mendocino coast, where the kelp beds, 97% of them have died off. Then sort of this perfect storm hit where there was a sea star wasting disease. They died off. They ate purple sea urchins. So the purple sea urchin population has exploded. So the chandeliers. That's beautiful. I mean, it's just a matter of thinking a little differently. I know everybody's overextended, you know, like crazy, but it's like instead of working really hard to have money to buy stuff, take that time and make stuff.
You're so right.
So this is all illegally built landfill from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Before the county was aware, this was like Wild West. It did not look like this. It was just like I showed you that earlier boat, just a bunch of boats cobbled together, no electric, and any utilities they had were pirated. And so over time, the county got involved, and they wanted to see force mains, you know, for the sewer.
Sure.
They wanted
all the
to see
regulation and permitting, and
so that's come over time.
Here's some images of the electrical systems and wiring that they had set up before regulations were put into place.
What do you do with waste? How is that taken care of or treated?
You have a pump in your boat, so wherever your toilet is has to be a few feet above the pump.
Okay.
And then, the pump has a float switch, and then it just pumps it out into, every dock has its own force main.
Okay.
And then the force main meets the city. So
Gotcha.
it's basically garden hoses and PVC pipes, fresh water in and gray water out. Some of us have natural gas. It can be a little wicked to get PG&E to figure out where we are.
Okay.
Or to install meters, but there is, underneath the dock, natural gas, water, sewage, electrical, internet, it's all under there. You kind of got to know your stuff to get those services.
I'm sure.
We're a specialized kind of community.
So is there a gas guy and a water guy and...
Good luck.
While some of their systems might not be quite so organized, look at this. Every dock had their own composting, recycling, and trash center. And they were pretty beautiful. But I wonder if every dock had one of these, too.
Guess that's how they get their groceries home.
The official cart of the HOA.
FHA.
I bought into the original trash hippie community and went through the process of demolishing it and
Renovating.
Which was sad, but we're all better off, to be sure. We're all a lot better off. We're safer. A lot of those hippies are elderly now. And I'm talking about 2x4s to get into your house.
Wow.
And all of the creative people that were here and all the musicians and artists attracted a real underbelly. So there was like drug dealers and pedophiles and stuff like that. And so I heard stories about my community having their own police. It was like, this guy can't spend the night here.
Yeah.
And he's not going willingly.
Wow.
Here on Gate 6 we have South 40 Dock, Liberty Dock, Main Dock, the Charles Van Dam Dock, the co-op. I'm a member of the co-op.
Okay.
Then here we have A Dock, Main Dock, Yellow Ferry. Yellow Ferry is the only independently owned one. It is a yellow ferry that they scavenged out of Alameda 40 years ago.
Okay.
That's cool.
And so he owns his own dock. Kappa's is owned by one landholder, Steckler Pacific, and these others are owned by Waldo Point Harbor, which is Sequoia Land Trust. That's like money from Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're their like ugly duck or black sheep or whatever.
Are many of these rentals or short-term rentals, or is pretty much everything long-term?
That's a great question. Nobody wants to live next to an Airbnb.
I understand.
30-day minimum. Okay, when I finally got off the airplane, my now wife Christine said, "Oh, the tide's high. You have to take off your shoes." This was 6 feet lower, and the tide was high, and I literally rolled up my pants. I was coming off a boat, so I had a sea bag, and I walked through the high tide to get to these floating docks.
Okay.
I'm home. Yes.
I love it.
And it was completely third world. Like,
And that was your
or less
first time
developed.
seeing your
My
now
first
home.
time coming here, getting off the airplane at sunset and walking through the high tide with my sea bag to my boat that I'd never seen.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you've seen a tremendous transformation in a decade.
This has all been filled in about 6 feet, and our whole community was out here. You can see our footprints in the mud if you want to come and see our footprints.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
You'd walk through the high tide, and then you'd walk out here, and there is no way you could get a pizza. There is no way. There is no. You could never find me. Nobody. If you haven't been there, you're not gonna find it, because we splintered off willy-nilly, and I loved that. And we always kind of made fun of these straight docks, but one of the things is these docks are fixed, so when the tide goes out, you kind of look under the dock. So when we rebuilt our docks, we made them floating so that we could ostensibly have a better view.
Oh, smart.
This is where we were.
Here is where you can see the footprints of where their houseboats originally sat amongst the mud flats before being relocated.
If you're a boat that you live on that's a houseboat, and because you're living on it, you've probably increased the center of gravity, it's not seaworthy, and you can't get a loan on a houseboat. That's cash, You can't really insure them for much. But if you have a concrete barge, now you're floating home, now a bank will talk to you, you can lean on it or whatever.
Okay.
So even when I moved here, I had a World War II landing craft in a concrete barge, and it was an open barge. And I had to chase out a family of raccoons and, like all this stuff and kind of take it back. Like nature was taking over. It was completely rotten. It was gorgeous. The hands that built it, real boat builders' hands, but then neglected. So there wasn't a dry corner in the house. I actually drilled holes in the floors to let the water out.
Wow.
And we lived in
Repatched them back
complete,
up,
like the
yeah.
toilet couldn't be bolted to the floor. It was just completely rotten. So just extra wax, and my wife is a hardy lass, and you know, we just tell people, yeah, you can use the toilet, don't wiggle, and just a lot of problems with basic utilities. And part of the reason it was in that bad a shape is because for so long the landholders and the government said, do not fix these. We're going to come through and help you do it up to code.
Wow.
And they
so,
did?
well, it took a couple of decades, yeah.
Okay.
But they followed through on their word to get that done.
That's big.
Yeah, just barely. There was $2 million set aside to help us in the 80s, and you know, by the 2010s that was not quite enough. So some people had a harder time, you know, coming up with an extra 50, 60 grand to finish it out.
It's not a small chunk of change by any means,
50, 60 grand to end up with $1 million boat.
Yeah. Well, at that
Yeah.
rate of what's
Yeah.
happened in terms of demand, because I'm sure so many people want to live this lifestyle out here.
Well, I should tell you too, we 38 boats are a low-income community.
Okay.
So I have to sell my boat to a low-income person. Well, in Marin, it's 120 for a married couple.
Okay.
Since we don't have resale restrictions, it's up to us to like do the honorable thing and let artists in, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out over
Sure.
time. You know, like the lives you've led, like the life I've led, it's really hard to just get an apartment in a city.
It's so hard.
I mean, it's cool for a summer in France or something like
Yeah.
that, but it's like,
You kind of get cabin fever or stir crazy.
I need to be closer to the elements,
Yes.
and this is a really good medium.
I see that.
I pay attention to the tides and the moons and the winds, and
Yes.
I get to see the water. I get to, the seabirds every morning. Right now, the pile worms are breeding, so everybody's watching the pile worms and commenting about them. And
Tell us, what are the pile worms?
they're pretty freaky.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to swim with them. They're just
Are they
giant.
big?
Yeah, they can get pretty big.
They're giant.
Like,
You can find like 2-footers, and then they'll like spawn. All of a sudden, there'll be a million little ones. And
No.
yeah, it's super gross.
So
they're fascinating.
they eat these big posts in the ground then? When
Yeah,
you say pile
I think
worms.
they feed off the. You'd have to talk to
Like the
to
wood?
some other guys, but I think
Okay.
they feed off the growth on the wood and on the lines and things
Wow.
like that. So whether the tide is high or low, it's you get to watch different marine
There's
life.
so many different kinds of birds around here. It's wild.
I can tell you're liking how much nature is just all around you within this kind of community.
Yeah,
I'm like, are there any houseboats for sale now?
there are. Yeah, we'll show you a couple of ads. They're a pretty penny.
Okay. Oh, no.
Heavy down payment, probably $250,000 down or something.
Wow.
The market's hot now. Everybody wants to be here.
Yeah.
That's true.
A lot of my friends have been displaced as renters because the owners now is the time to sell.
Yeah, of course.
I see.
The other thing though is you can't really compare this market to anything else. The space is limited. If you can build a $5 million boat, but you can't put it here.
Yeah.
So you can buy another boat and demolish it and then build your dream home. And there's been a little bit of that going on.
So it already has to exist.
No more space. This is it. It's locked in. So there's this whole anchor out community as well. When you're on the waterfront in South Sleating, you look at all these sailboats. Oh, that's pretty. Those are not yachts. Those are people's legit homes. It's federal water. The spirit of the law is that if you're a mariner, you come here, throw down the hook, fix up your boat. Maybe you go work for a couple of weeks and do some project. So that's the spirit of the law. What's going on is that people who are not mariners are living out there, would be homeless.
Okay.
And as they're not mariners, their boats blow free in a storm. Your boat blows free in a storm, you're on it, you wash up on shore on Tiburon Strawberry.
Yeah.
Those guys don't like it. You're bashing into their waterfront. But you're also putting other boats to risk.
Of course.
You know? There's a lot of drug addiction, probably some mental health issues out there. I'm not going to say how many or who's who, but certainly people that don't belong on the water, living on the water.
Okay.
So the Richardson Bay Regional Association, they will come crush your boat.
Wow.
Let's see, you have a sailboat, let's see your sail. You don't have a sail, that's marine debris. You have a motorboat, can you turn the motor on? You don't have a motor, that's marine debris.
Wow.
Okay, maybe they'll give you time to work on it if you're sober and working.
Yeah.
But otherwise they're happy to crush your boat and get you off. That's the real flip side of the coin.
Wow.
The flip side to that coin, you're going to go downtown and see the tent city, where the homeless are living in tents, and they've just won a federal decision to stay in the tents downtown. In South Salito, we're talking about South Salito, guys. The people living on the hill looking down at the tents aren't too happy about it. And there's been a long story about what to do with these people. Some of those people were living on boats that were crushed. Some of them are social justice activists and homeless activists. But some of them turned in their boats voluntarily. It's quite a thing, you know. So the city can't take their tents unless they can house them.
Okay.
But we don't have those resources. The richest county in the world We don't have resources.
They're
for
not
our homeless
allocating
people.
funds to
Right.
do something about that social problem.
So the tent city gets to stay. They're called Camp Compassion.
Okay.
You walk around and say hi. They're friendly and
Yeah.
they're actually activist homeless.
We'll have to take our blessing bags there, but it seems like some of the people who were homeless on the boats here are now the homeless in the tents there.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow, what a switch.
Yeah. So that's the anchor out.
Okay.
And so when I moved here, anchor outs would land at our dock. Like we were friends to anchor outs, and they could always land, and they were always coming up and down. I had a lot of anchor outs working for me at the deli. This is interesting because tide's low, can't get to work. It's storming out. It's not safe to come to work. And in the early days, that was fine. You know, stormy day, we're slow. So that was kind of an interesting relationship. It was charming. The city has closed down all landings for anchor outs, little by little. This pier is meant to have public access.
Okay.
By order of BCDC,
Okay.
Bay Conservation Development. This is public land. It's supposed to have a landing. It doesn't. The landowners don't want to have a landing here and have the anchor outs coming in here to the park.
Yeah.
Are they gonna, you know, there's a problem with bathrooms and showers and storage.
Sure.
If you had a job, you could join like one of the yacht clubs or one of the gyms
Okay.
and use showers like that. But
What would roughly be like the membership cost to join something like that?
$500 a year.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, not doable for a lot of
Understandable.
folks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We've seen it throughout our van travels, the gym memberships being used by anybody from truckers to homeless to van lifers to full-time RVers. So there's definitely a need for those type of amenities even within the boating community.
It's a big problem right now. We need showers and lockers. The city wanted to move them to a different park that nobody can see. That park is swampy, and it's right behind the machines that crush their boats. So that's kind of wicked.
Oh, yeah.
But the city did put lockers and a bathroom and mobile showers in there, but it's like, we're going to wake up to the sounds of the machines what crushed our boats. When COVID came down about a year ago and they shut down all the restaurants and catering, the deli is great, but I actually make half my money catering weddings and stuff, and so do a lot of my friends, like Maria, who you're going to meet. Let's do meal delivery. We had a thought that some people couldn't afford it, and so we put a donate button on the website, and we called that No Neighbor Left Behind. And to get a free meal, somebody has to recommend you and say this person needs it. So of 100 meals, it was actually like 50 or more were free. It was intense. It was really cool. Like we were so responsive. You know, the government hadn't figured out how to do anything yet, and we were filling in the gap. So we do that through the Rotary of Sausalito. You can go to their website, you can click on No Neighbor Left Behind, and you can donate money to me, and I will feed the low-income seniors and a few other people in the community I know, just around the waterfront. Sometimes the tent city will get a little extras, sometimes some mamas I know from Marin City will get a little extras, but it's cool how it's not restrictive. By the time the governor did get the Great Plates programs going, it was so restrictive. Like, who qualifies to get it? Who qualifies to cook it? Are the drivers background checked and licensed and all of that? And it's just so much bureaucracy that I feel like we're a more potent program.
Yeah.
We'll definitely put a link to that in the video description too, because I'd love for our community to be able to give back to your community.
Love it. Love the story.
You know, good luck, you guys. I think you guys would love the waterfront here.
Thank you.
You know, and because it is super like magical, Marin. You have Point Reyes, you have hikes everywhere. You have like a great community, and the waterfront is like a grittier. That's why I love it. Is like there's a sort of a socioeconomic diversity, and you have access to incredibly beautiful nature.
Yes.
And San Francisco is 10 minutes away. So you want to do something, you want to go to a museum or what?
It's all right here.
Yeah, no, there's no better place to live. And this is just pure West Coast vibes. You know, it really is. And it's got like a really rich history of Alan Watts and, the art and the Audience Nin and the whole, Jean Varda, like Shel Silverstein, his house is still over on Liberty Dock. Our dock, the Charles Van Dam and the Issaquah were named for these giant ferry boats.
Oh, that's where those names came from. Okay.
Yeah, they were supposed to be demoed.
Okay.
And the guy who owned this property was very pro-hippie. So instead of demoing them, he towed them over here. And one became a commune. I think that was at Issaquah. And the Charles Van Dam became a concert venue and had a restaurant, Juanita's. So like Grateful Dead played, Janis Joplin played, and they got...
all right here in the harbor.
Right here. And they got paid in huevos rancheros. No way. They got breakfast of huevos rancheros. That was payment.
I loved that. What an experience.
That was so cool.
She was so sweet, so interesting and creative, and I feel like there's all sorts of stories hidden inside of each one of these houseboats about unique individuals just wanting to live a different kind of life, you know?
I love the community aspect of it. We've driven down roads where we've seen the houseboats from a distance, but this is the first time I think you, have actually ever been in a houseboat first person.
Yeah, to be completely honest, it felt like a normal house. The only difference is what it comes with, which is a totally different lifestyle, and that speaks a lot
to both of us.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys found that fascinating, inspiring in some way, and maybe you understand a little bit more about what we're looking for when it comes to whether it's land or a community. We still aren't 100% sure, but we're going to be looking under all sorts of rocks until we find what we're looking for.
All we know is we're getting a little bit closer.
And if you know of a cool houseboat for sale, let us know. You can email us, drop a comment. Be sure to subscribe and join us next week for yet another exciting adventure. See you soon.